As I promised you last week, we have Bill Cloud back with us from Shoreshim Ministry, Shoreshim, which means roots. And Bill, it's good to have you back.
I'm glad to be here.
Let's continue on. We have communications from the basket of deplorables out there. And last time we were talking about your terminology, which I also embrace, in making a distinction between Jewish roots and Hebrew roots. And there were some other questions that came up that really are related to that. And I think that we can continue on with this. How do we celebrate the Feast of Trumpets? Is there anything we have to do?
Well, it is a memorial of blowing of trumpets. It is a day that we don't work, and those are things that are laid out there most definitely. But when it comes to any of the feasts, and any Sabbath for that matter, there are things that are written, but then there are things that I believe that are implied. That, and by that I mean, if I can do the religious aspect of it, I can blow a shofar, I can stop working. But what is it really about? It's a memorial of blowing of trumpet. It is to awaken me. It is to alert me. Hey, there is a very special and very holy time approaching. It is a time to kind of awaken ourselves from our slumber. I think Paul alludes to Yom Teruah when he talks about, that we are to awaken from our slumber. And so the sounding of the shofar, the memorial of the blowing of trumpets, is, in my experience, has been a time when not only do I blow the shofar, not only do we cease and desist from our work, but it's a time to ready myself for these other feasts and festivals that are upcoming. And there's other things that we could go into that come to us through tradition and custom, as far as the prophetic implications and all those kinds of things.
Right, and this is one of these prophetic shadow pictures, the Feast of Trumpets. This initiates the fall feast of the Lord, which is yet to be fulfilled in the future. Yeshua fulfilled the spring feast, but yet the fall feast is a picture of what transpires as we step over the age into the age of redemption. What we've seen happen in Rabbinic Judaism is this has really been superseded on this day that we are to remember the blowing of trumpets. And we go right back to the big issue of the day of the blowing of trumpets, Exodus 19 and 20, where the trumpets blew to bring us to the base of Mount Sinai, the shouting down of the commandments, in which was so awesome. We said to Moses, please, we can't bear this anymore. Right. You go up and you speak to the Almighty. Whatever he tells you, you come back and tell us. We promise we'll obey, but do not let us stand on this fire and see this mighty spectacle again. We are afraid we're going to die. And the Almighty said, they've well spoken what they've spoken. Okay, I'm not going to do that. I will speak to you, Moses, and I will send another prophet in the future that you must shema, one who hears directly from me. But I never, ever want you to forget this day. From now on, the first day of the 7th month, you shall have a memorial of the blowing of the trumpets. You will rehearse this thing as long as heaven and earth exist. But what has happened in Judaism? It's been turned into Rosh Hashanah.
Rosh Hashanah, yes.
Which, the head of the year on the first day of the 7th month, it automatically tells you something. And this was what was admitted to me by the head of the Israeli New Moon Society, which is a group of ultra-Orthodox Jews who were set on, and really their goal is to reestablish the ancient biblical calendar that was used in the time of the temple, realizing that they're not going to put it into effect until the Messiah comes, but they know how it's to be kept. And he said, Rosh Hashanah on the first day of the 7th month is a rabbinic tradition.
True.
He said, we made it up. The month of the Aviv, when the barley is Aviv, this is when the beginning of the year is. But what have we turned this into now? In Rabbinic Judaism, we've turned this into a time of celebration and dipping apples in honey. And it's like, wait, where is the memorial of the Almighty shouting down his commandments? Where's a memorial that no one adds or subtracts? Where's a memorial that we are to listen to Moses and obey him, and there's another prophet coming in the future we must hear and obey, which is Yeshua? Where's the remembrance of that?
Well, and going back to what I was saying, all of these things, even though they have a corporate application, I think they also have an individual application. He's speaking to me. And so in the memorial of the blowing of the trumpets, which is reminiscent of the voice of God declaring his words to his people, it is a time for me as an individual to awaken it within me, to remember these things that he has spoken, to reaffirm and to reassert, my commitment to keep the words that he's given us through Moses. So just like everything else where man gets involved, the traditions and the customs kind of supersede, because those are the things that tend to appeal to and appease the flesh. Even down to, dipping apple in honey. Nothing wrong with apples, nothing wrong with honey. But that's not the goal here. That's
take
not
us
the
away
objective.
from what we're supposed to remember, then this new tradition becomes the thing we remember instead of what we are supposed to remember.
Exactly. And so we have to return to what is commanded, not what the customs and traditions are, however harmless they may seem on the surface. We need to get back to the commandments of God, because your traditions, he says, have made the commandments of God of none effect.
Yeah,
and that's
right.
the danger. So
Absolutely. And in the Hebrew, it's that tradition is the word takanot.
Right.
The laws enacted by the Pharisees which change or negate biblical law, that is what they hold in supreme over the Scripture. And that's unacceptable.
Well, and this harkens back to something we talked about in another segment. We have Jewish roots, or things that people refer to as Jewish roots, and so that insinuates that we should look to Judaism and to the Jews to give us the answers to how we do these things. Where if we use the term Hebrew roots, it opens up, as far as I'm concerned, encompasses much more. We're not looking to a religion to give us answers. We're looking to this book to give us the answers.
That's right. As Abraham was the first Hebrew, he was a friend of God, and that relationship is what brought about.
Right. And he heard what God said, and he did what God said.
We've just got a couple minutes. I believe that this next question relates to this. Sukkot. I know we're supposed to have a sukkah, but I can't afford to take a whole week off. How can I keep Sukkot without breaking the law by not camping?
Well, don't go camping. We were talking about this a little bit, Sukkot is one of my favorite times of year, I have to say. And it is a time.
Especially in America, beautiful, beautiful weather.
Right,
and,
crisp air, I love it. I enjoy it. But even then we have to be careful that we don't allow the things that appeal to our flesh and appease our flesh to overtake what this is really all about. We remember that he led us through the wilderness. That in that time he led us through the wilderness, we didn't lack for anything. We didn't want for anything. And so it is a time of remembering. It's a memorial of a sort. And we also, I believe, anticipate. We're looking at it as with anticipation of the kingdom to come. We're moved into the age of redemption. So when it comes to keeping Sukkot, there are certain things that we are to do. We have Sabbaths that serve more or less as bookends on the festivals of Sukkot. And if you can't afford to go camping, don't go camping. Just observe what is written. Do what is written.
Well, I think we've got a big issue coming up that's boiling right under the surface here, because this person is writing in, he can't afford to take the week off. And he feels that if he doesn't go camping, that he may be in violation of the Torah. We don't have time to handle it right now. Let's come back.
Okay.
Let's explore this a little bit more. Next week, join us back here, Shabbat Night Live, and we shall, with Shoreshim MInistries, Bill Cloud, we're going to continue tackling these issues so that people get an understanding, a biblical perspective. This is not Jewish roots. This is Hebrew roots. We're going to go back to the faith once delivered to the saints. And we'll do it right after this word for our sponsors out there. You are our only sponsors. They must proclaim that the 7 Noahide laws came from Moses.
And so I refrain from using the term Jewish roots, not to be an offense, but just to kind of reinforce the idea here is that we're trying to be biblical, not necessarily Jewish.